Thanks, Doug. I'm from the United States. I went to university in Boston at MIT, then went to England, and then about 23 years ago, we visited India, trying to see if we could do anything to help. And about end of '87, my wife and I moved there, and we started doing work for the poor. And we've been there most of the time since then. We had a few years in England, but even then we were involved in fundraising and coming back regularly. So we've tried to do a lot there. We have a lot to learn, and we've learned a lot, and we hope that we can learn something here today and make connections. We find that what Google does as a company, where you bring people together, that's actually extremely valuable in our work, because we're often unaware of great things that are happening or great connections that we could make. What we'll do today that hopefully will inspire and encourage you and give you some knowledge as well is we'll show a brief video we made for USAID. We do a child survival program. The video kind of shows the contrast between the two Indias, which you're probably aware of. There is an extremely successful, booming India, as well as an India that is still struggling with some really huge developmental issues, especially with health. And so this kind of shows the contrast, and then we'll do a sort of a PowerPoint that goes over a little bit of what we're doing, and that will provide some talking points, and we'll have some Q&A as well if we have time. So thank you for coming. And let's see if we can get this to work. How you define poverty line. Some say it's $500 million under the poverty line.
Looking for the answer to all the questions in my life. Will I be alone? Will you be there by my side? Is it something you said? Is it something you did. I wonder why he is searching for the answer. Stay alive. Could you ever listen? Could you ever dare to speak your mind? Only for a minute, only one moment in time. The choice and us show me the love we must find. Are you searching for a reason to be kind? To be kind. He said, pray for me, brother. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, sister. Pray for me, sister. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, sister. Are you searching? Pray for me, brother. Looking for the answer to all the questions in my life. Will I be alone? Will you be there by my side? Is it something you said? Is it something you did? I wonder why he is searching for the answer. Stay alive. Could you ever listen? Could you ever dare to speak your mind? Only for a minute, only one moment in time. The choice and us show me the love we must find. Are you searching for a reason to be kind? To be kind. He said, pray for me, brother. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, sister. Pray for me, sister. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, brother. Pray for me, brother.
I'll go ahead and try to get our PowerPoint up. Sorry for some of the technical difficulties. But we find working to help the poor in India to be tremendously inspiring and encouraging because the hearts of the people are so eager there. One of the things in doing development work is that we found that people really want a better life all over the world, and if you give them a chance, they really respond to it. This is a bit more about our work. Hopefully it'll go. Similar to the earlier video, the issue we see in India is that globalization has really contributed to the Indian economy rapidly developing. Now, since we're able in India to deliver high-quality services and support to the world economy, now that we're all connected better, partially by Google, that has really boosted India. And yet India has tremendous needs still, with a huge number of poor people living in the villages. And these people are now streaming into the cities looking for employment. And the country still has tremendous challenges in the area of health, education, and many other areas. There's worse malnutrition in India than in sub-Saharan Africa. You know, the most malnourished nation in the world is actually India, which is a shocking thing because of the fact that India has a strong history of producing food, but distribution is weak. It's the same tune as the other one. We're a grassroots NGO. There are many good NGOs working in all over the world, but we hope we are one of them. And we don't give money to other NGOs. We try to directly intervene. So we're working mainly in urban areas. We started in 1991 officially, though earlier we had already been working unofficially. These are the cities and towns we work in around India. You can see a number on the coast because of tsunami. We have about 100 programs now. We do a lot of work through volunteers. Our goal is to make a big difference in the communities we work in. Our goal is not to help as many people as we can in the sense, let's help 1 billion people. We'd rather help 1 million people well than try to help 1 billion people and not succeed, because the job is so huge. And we try to offer services encompassing all the needs of communities we work in, beginning with whatever we can start with depending on our partners and the local area. This is a bit of the indication of our impact before. We actually are educating 5,000 kids now and training 5,000 people a year. This is a little outdated, our slides. We run 6 care homes to take care of abandoned children and women. Some of them are for HIV-positive kids who have nowhere to go, and we take care of them until their death. And then we also have a couple of orphanages, one in Trichy and one in New Delhi, that also do adoptions. We work with the mentally handicapped in Delhi with a government center that was really having a lot of problems, but we've come in to try and strengthen them as an institution and help them. Taking care of orphans is sort of the most expensive kind of thing that an NGO can do, but it's very meaningful for those of us involved in it. And my wife and I have had the blessing of adopting one Indian daughter who's now 15 and a half. She's a fantastic young lady. This is our orphanage in Trichy, which Doug has also contributed. Doug Banks, the Google employee, has also contributed to help run this orphanage. We find money goes a long way in the third world. We work around India. The government has a good program called Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. It doesn't reach all the kids, and Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan means education for all, kind of like No Child Left Behind. We're currently, as of now, with corporate partners and others, teaching 5,000 kids in full-time education. This is a school we built in Gujarat after the earthquake. Disasters unfortunately hurt people, but they also provide the opportunity to rehabilitate communities since the world's attention is on them. We work with a number of corporate sponsors to do education. When a child goes to our schools for their whole primary education, by the end they know English and they're equipped to become part of the new Indian economy. And we have lots of different schools around the country, totaling about 5,000 kids. We're using computer-based education now in many of them. This is one we built in a tsunami-affected area, thanks to a German company. One of the reasons the successful India doesn't always reach down to the lowest levels is that in the Indian schooling system, often schools educate only in the local language, which for the poor means that they're not able to connect to the new economy through English. The other challenge that occurs is that sometimes schools catering to slum children are not very well funded or taught. So you'll have 50, 60 kids in a room. You won't have very high dedication level by the teachers and so on. And so, and often there's not enough government schools to actually cater to all the kids, and there's a lot of child labor. So we try to combat child labor by providing education with school meals and so on. We do a variety of health interventions. For a while, we did a lot of direct primary health care programs. We found those were very expensive, and so we shifted towards health education, though we still do some primary health programs directly giving people medical care. Our largest health program right now is in Delhi. We run what's called a child survival program, where we work with a large slum where there's no government health care, and that's a TB DOTS program. This is a very successful thing all over India. We help about 500 people a year to avoid death by making sure they get tuberculosis direct observation and treatment. That's one program we're in. The large health program I was describing is in Sonia Vihar in Delhi. This is a typical urban slum. There's no health care. There are about 200,000 people who live there. We work educating the slum about proper health, as well as trying to get the government to deliver health care in this particular community. And we're trying to create replicable models so that the government can do this in other urban areas that don't have enough health care. We've done a good amount of work with HIV/AIDS. India is well ahead of some parts of the world with HIV in the sense that because we've learned from bad experiences in certain countries, the world knows better now how to stop AIDS from going out of control. And so the Indian government has made a serious effort at trying to educate people about HIV. The problem is still real and significant, but it's not as bad as it could be. We work, our first programs were with leprosy patients. We bandage them. We've helped to rehabilitate them. One of our most successful programs is in Delhi with the Village of Hope, where we had a community of about 5,000 people. 90% were begging, and 15 years later, almost all of them are working. It's a small program, but very significant in that we've rehabilitated leprosy patients, their families to work. This is our one home for the elderly, which again, there are so many needs in America with the elderly as well, but we do what we can for a group in Kerala of elderly persons. One of our biggest things we aim at to connect the two Indias together is training young people. We found that there's a lot of extremely intelligent and eager people living in India's slums, but they can't get an entry-level job that pays well because they lack the social skills or the computer skills or the language skills to even get their foot in the door at the bottom level of corporate India, which just leads to a better life for them. And so we work with a number of corporates to do vocational training. A lot of it is with computers. We also do English, soft skills, financial literacy. We teach masonry, sewing, beauty skills, cell phone repair, just anything that we feel that there will be locally available jobs that the people can connect to. And this is one of the most effective things we feel like you can do for the poor is training them. We also provide microcredit for people as part of an integrated package. We need to do more in the area of microcredit. We've not done what some of the big microcredit institutions do, where they'll do millions of loans. We tend to work with communities, so we'll do loans in the communities we work in. But we're trying to do more with that, and I know Google's getting involved with that through google.org. This is electrical repairs. It's a very good skill to have these days since India is electrifying as a country. These are women with dried fish or handicrafts that they're making as part of small businesses we help them to create. We're working with Walmart in India to run industrial centers of hope. These are in some of the big industrial areas of India, and in each area we educate and we train people. So you can see just in the Walmart program we're teaching about 3,000 kids and training 1,500 a year. So that's why our numbers are a bit higher overall than some of our summary slides indicate. There still is a lot of child labor in India, unfortunately. Companies are getting increasingly sophisticated at avoiding it. Walmart's doing a good job trying to prevent it, but Walmart's not the only buyer in India. And there's a lot of child labor that goes undetected because people now have moved the kids to work at night so that inspectors won't find them. Inspectors come in the day. So if kids work at night, the inspectors won't see them. So that's which you find out if you're working in the community, but not if you just occasionally visit. We're excited that in the program we're involved with, obviously, we don't see child labor. This is a bit of our financial turnover. That means the number at the right means about $2.5 million a year. So we've been growing, but there's a lot more to do. And that's it. Thank you. So that's a little bit of a summary. I'll talk a little bit more, and then we'll open it up for interactive discussion, if that's okay with you. So for me personally, I wanted to make a difference with my life. I went to university at M.I.T, and as a young person, I had the opportunity to go to India. And I think we all have to seek the opportunities we're given. And at the age I was at, I was able to move there and to do something personally there, which not everyone gets a chance to do, but my connections and situation gave me that opportunity. And we saw a lot of grassroots needs, and it was very upsetting to me to visit Calcutta in 1985 and to see people who were very kind, but who were sitting on the roadside and they were selling small sticks, you know, the neem sticks, sticks to clean your teeth with, or they were repairing shoes or pulling rickshaws and really struggling to make very little money. And I was really troubled that I couldn't even speak the language to communicate with them, much less try to help them. And handing them a little money is not really what's going to help someone. It's really helping them to help themselves. And so we decided we would live in India and try to engage and figure out what we can do to help people. People in India have been extremely hospitable and kind to us. They're wonderful. I've had the blessing of sitting in many poor people's homes, and they will feed you, not because you're a foreigner, but because you're a guest. They'll feed you, and the rest of the week they may only eat rice, but they'll make sure that you eat well in their house. And that's a real testimony to the people there. We've seen that if you give people training and education, they're really able to come up in life. And we have graduates from some of our programs who are now working at places like Google in India, or Dell, or other places, who were, living in the most wretched of conditions in slums. We see one of the big challenges in India right now is urbanization. Most of India lives in villages, and because now the cities have great opportunity, incredible numbers of people are moving in. And the cities don't stop you from moving in. So cities like Delhi have 600,000 people moving there every year. And they just move into existing slums that have very little water, medical care, or education. And so the slums of India, the conditions are incredibly bad in places where even 10 years ago they might have been okay. But people are just jamming in. And the reason they jam in is if you live in New Delhi, you can make enough money to send money home to your family and really help them. And so you as a young man or even a young family who want to help your family in impoverished Bihar or Uttar Pradesh, you can make so much more money in Delhi or Mumbai or Ahmedabad or Bangalore than you could in your village that it's worth moving into. So there's a whole range of problems in urban India now that are worse today than they were 10 years ago. And the villages of India are rapidly changing. They're getting electrified, and there's more and more water and roads connecting the villages, but there's still tremendous inequality in the country. And the economy is booming, but we see a real danger of social unrest, because what used to happen is most people were poor. Now there are many people who know people from their same caste and background who have become way wealthier than them. And so there's increasing unrest and unhappiness among the poor. Why are we not included in this booming economy? And our goal as an NGO is to do what we can in as many places as we can to deliver compassion. And compassion not as a handout, but the idea is that we want to help people help themselves. And we don't want to do it for the sake of, let's see what's the biggest number that we can claim. We're not out to become the biggest NGO. We want to retain our quality or our connection. And I noticed this. I visited Google a few times and walked around. even though you're a fairly large company, you still seem to have whatever qualities made you this company. You know, there's a sense of joy on the campus, a lot of positive things that are there. We hope as an organization, as we grow, that we can retain our values and not just become sort of a corporate NGO that does a lot of stuff, but at the grassroots is unresponsive. So that's a little bit about us. And I have a wife and 4 kids, and I'm very glad I could be here. I'm here to get my visa renewed. Every 5 years I have to come back to the United States or somewhere to apply for a visa. So I'm trying to get back into India to continue our work. I need to. I left one of my kids behind. My Indian daughter didn't need a visa, so there you go. So I'll go ahead and open it up now for a few minutes of questions. We have a little bit of time, and I'm really thankful that you could come, and also grateful for the work you do at Google. I use your product every day, many times, as do most people who have computers. So thank you.
So as Doug mentioned, what can employees or people who work in this industry, like Google, what can we do to help in any way or address any challenges other than sending money?
I think that's a great question. And your name again is?
Rajul?
What Rajul Vora was asking is, what can we as employees, other than giving money, do to help people? And I think that's a great question. I think there's a few things to consider. One thing to be aware of is creating connections is very valuable. Often we as charities are completely ignorant of resources or people who would want to help us, but we just don't know where to go. Like, I'm still making the effort of connecting with the right people in Google.org. Even though I'm right here in Google today, I haven't sat with the right people in Google.org to see what overlap our organization has with what Google is already doing that is very good. You earlier before the talk pointed me to the idea that NGOs and charities can get on to Google grants and get themselves properly listed so search engines can find them. You may be aware of entities that could be of interest to us and where a meeting would help us. And I'm not just talking about us, any other charity. Connecting people together, which is what your company does, is actually very valuable. And as an NGO, I have very little time to actually meet people because there's so many demands on my time. So if I'm able to have an intelligent search, so to speak, where I get introduced to the right person who might be interested in what I'm doing, or we may be able to team up together, that's one really useful thing. I think a second thing is that if you're able to visit a charity, and it could be ours or it could be another one, that's doing good work and personally connect to a local program, you can become someone who helps promote that particular program, because you'll have your own ability to speak about it. It won't just be, here's something on the net that you can look at. I was there. Like, I know Doug and Nathan visited our programs. They know that we really are doing something. And you know, our PowerPoints don't always even accurately reflect things, because we don't employ that many people to do the PowerPoint. Most of our people are actually delivering the work, the care on the ground. So when we get volunteers who can speak about what we're doing, that helps us, but it changes your life. You know, when you go and you interact with the poor or serve the poor anywhere you go, it makes something inside of you different. I know for my kids, having my kids live in India is really great for them, because instead of just being worried about the latest BMX trends, which my son's into BMX biking, he knows there's a world of people out there who can't afford a bicycle, much less a BMX bike, and you know, that can do the proper stunts, you know. And so bringing your kids over, if you have kids, is very encouraging. And we had friends from San Francisco do that recently, which was really great. The O'Haras, I'm staying with them. And I think the third thing is that you can give, and giving, if you're able to make a personal connection through visiting, is even more meaningful. Now, I don't think it's bad to give. I think it's good to give, just because charities, whether they're Grameen Bank or ours or any other, there are many good charities that do good work who appreciate funds. But that's sort of my three-part answer of what you can do. And I know time is limited for you, and so you have to figure out what can I do while supporting my family.
Yeah, so a follow-up question. One problem I have is connecting with some of these charities that are doing good work. When I go to India on a vacation, I feel like, yeah, if there was some place where I can just plug in and say, hey, I'm a NRI, I would like to spend a week of my vacation doing some good work. But I have no idea who to plug into.
Well, now you
Yes.
know.
Yes, I have your business card and I'll send you an email. But there is a large body of Indians living outside the US who have gone through that realization that, well, they can afford all these things, but there are lots of people who cannot, and they want to do something for them other than just sending money. But there isn't a very sort of a organized way to tap into that energy.
See, even what you just shared, if we'd welcome you to volunteer and to come, even if it's for a week, and we'd welcome you if you create some kind of way to let Indians know that we welcome volunteers. We find volunteers very useful because if they come over, we expect them to pay for themselves, but then we ask them, go back to where you're from and tell people what you saw that we do. And that's a very credible explanation. There is a tremendous amount of fraud in the NGO world, which certainly in India, but all over the world, there's two kinds of frauds in the NGO world. One kind of fraud CNN had on recently, that 40% of aid to Afghanistan goes into expat salaries. And you have all these experts. Our NGO has an expat, me, and when I started out, I was very cheap. I lived on very little money. Now I cost more. My kids are in the American school. I'm our one expat for, Asia, and I'm expensive. Now, hopefully, I'm generating enough value, and we try not to hire expats because they're too expensive. We want to hire local people who are more bang for the buck. But that's an issue in the charity world, is many charities have huge buildings full of expats, and you're paying for the expats, and that's not administration. They'll call that programming. Second issue is there's a lot of financial scandals that occur in the third world because accounting laws are loose. We as an NGO are approached on a weekly basis with offers of between $10 to $50 million if we'll participate in money laundering. And of course, we have to say no because we don't do such things. But the fact that we're offered on a weekly basis this kind of a deal tells us that there might be some that are taking this kind of deal. And it's very sophisticated now, the money laundering that goes on through charities in the third world. And they create shell companies and so on. It's very lucrative. And it's one of the ways that people are turning black money into white. And so it's really good if you visit, because then you see a real charity doing real work, and you avoid all those kind of pitfalls. And there are many good charities doing real work, and there's also a lot of bogus stuff that goes on as well. So that's another good question, though, is what can Indians do? And we love the connection because we know people want to help, but time is limited. So spread the word if you can about us, and we also link people up with other charities if we're not the right one for them, because we're not working everywhere. Okay, great. Any other questions?
So following up on how we can help.
And your name?
My name is Nilafar.
Nilafar. Oh, hi, Nilafar.
Nice to meet you. So we have an engineering office in Hyderabad, and we have an engineering office in Bangalore, and there are a lot of Googlers who visit. And I'm visiting in May, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be there for 2 weeks. It's not time off, but during the evenings or something, I'd like to go and figure out if I can help. And this is I'd like to take it on right now. What is it? Is it a possibility for me to go there part-time, a few hours a day or a number of days of a week? And then this could actually be put on our website that, hey, if you're there, you can do this. And it's not a...
Well, yeah, what I would say is this. The answer to that is yes. And we run programs with Dell and Computer Associates in Hyderabad. At night, they usually don't run, but because your offices tend to be flexible, there's probably a way, if you get in touch with us, for you to structure your schedule where you could be at our program and help out for a few hours, and we welcome volunteers. If we start to get a regular stream, we would hope that we'd get money somehow, because it costs us staff time to host lots of volunteers. But we figure we would, because the volunteers themselves might raise small donations, and that makes it, when a local program gets a volunteer who then gives to the local program, that's in their interest. It's worth their time to host you because they know they get more money to help their people locally. So, if you email me your dates of when you're coming, and what I need is very simple: date and location. And then I forward it to someone and say, please handle it. And then if you don't hear from them, you can bother me and say, hey, they don't answer emails. And then I'll try to ensure that you get an answer. But yes, and we do have one employee of Google who I know, a friend of ours who works in the Hyderabad campus. Her name is Ramita. Okay. And we welcome volunteers. And we often get corporate volunteers. Sometimes companies will send even groups of people, and we host them, which we find very enriching for both the company and our team. Our teams love getting volunteers, because when someone comes and you can show them what you do, it really, we can shut this down if you want. It really inspires them. We've got people who work very hard in the field, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. They rarely get someone who encourages them. Maybe I'll visit them once in 18 months. Maybe one of my colleagues visits every 6 months. But to have someone from America come, volunteer, and admire their work, that's something they're going to remember. So it helps not only the poor, but it helps our staff. And our staff are mostly doing it for the sake of they want to help. They could make more money elsewhere, but they get a lot of satisfaction. So getting some encouragement is good for them, because they work in difficult conditions. Hyderabad, our staff work in okay conditions. It's quite nice, our facilities there. But thanks for the question, though. It's a good question. We have a few more minutes if you have other questions or thoughts.
I got one, too. I was just wondering, for all the different programs you have, is there one that you feel like has a notion of kind of a tipping point where I think something Google in particular is good at or excited about is things that after a while kind of have a snowball effect, you know what I'm saying? So it's one thing, you're helping someone who's sick and you help them get better, and that's awesome and that's great. The reason that the computer program spoke to me more is that you have this person who then goes on and get a job and could in turn give back or inspire, motivate other people. Are there particular programs you would single out as having the most potential impact or the biggest?
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I've really tried to think about this. I know you had the outstanding people from Grameen Bank here at some point. This is a really interesting question, because I've studied development on the field level for more than 20 years. And we've poured globally incredible amounts of resources into places with sometimes mixed results. Like $300 billion has been given in Africa with mixed developmental results. Similarly, in India, there are programs we've done where we've spent a lot of money and resources, and at the end of 10 years, we go, well, did we make a tipping point? And the answer is no. We did mobile medical clinics that helped a lot of people, but it didn't really change anything. It just helped those people, so we've learned. And what we're excited about right now is the combination of microcredit and vocational training as being something that can be a tipping point. This is what we've discovered. What we've discovered is not the gospel or the truth. This is just our perspective. Someone else may have a different one, and they could be right. What we've found with microcredit is that often microcredit, when done on a mass level, when there's millions of loans, most of the loans are a lower cost alternative to money lenders, but they're being used for consumption. This is one reason why, even though in Bangladesh, one quarter of Bangladeshis in the last 20-something years have received microcredit. So it's actually enough to change the country. And yet, on the Human Development Index, Bangladesh is number 136 now, and they were number 135 20 years ago. So microcredit alone is not the answer in our experience. And that's because if you loaned everybody a microcredit loan and they're all selling to each other, but you've not empowered them to create a business that adds enough value that they start exporting from their village or exporting from their country, you still have a very large group of poor people selling to each other. And so you haven't reached a tipping point. And so through what we've been experimenting with, we're now trying to add microcredit into our training programs, where we will give people training, and then we'll give those same people we trained and we know are trustworthy loans. And we think this is very exciting because it gives us a pre-screening ability to choose people who are going to be successful as entrepreneurs and not just borrow the money to help their family, which, though we think that's noble, we don't think loans to help your family developmentally are always the most effective way for an NGO to do it. And that's often where microcredit ends up going, is to meet family needs. And there's nothing wrong with helping family, but you want to actually create wealth for the local economy. So that question is a good one, but I think that we're seeing some great and exciting developmental results in the tsunami area. We've had a chance to invest a lot in certain tsunami communities because the world paid attention. They were poor before tsunami, but with the world paying attention, there was a large amounts of money given, and we got some of that. And we've built some very large training programs in Nagapattinam. We've also are building microcredit there. And so there are all these little businesses that are starting up of people we've trained, and it's, as a model, is very exciting. So I'm hoping that we can layer microcredit on. We've seen organizations like Kiva and others that we're not yet able to tap into because we're not big enough in the microcredit arena. But if we get big enough, we could directly connect borrowers in a place like India to global capital markets, which is now available, I know, through some entities. So that's kind of strategically what we're aiming at right now. And and this is, my comments on microcredit are not to say it's a bad thing, but it's not the answer in and of itself from our experience. Now, someone else may say, you're wrong, and they may be right. I can only do what I've learned in my context, and I'm not trying to be the world's expert, but at least the expert of what I'm doing, I need to be.
One thing I wanted to ask about, when I went with Doug a couple months ago, and one thing that you were discussing, you moved in 1987, and so you've had about 20 years of experience in India. And one of the things that I noticed when I was both in Bangalore and Delhi is just the changes that obviously have changed in the last couple of years. There were shopping centers and offices that looked like they had been dropped in by helicopters, among surroundings that were not nearly as gleaming and silvery. But I'm curious on that point, because that's one thing that I missed, is I don't have a sense of the overarching, what improvements have been made over the last 20 years? What have you seen that gives us some hope for in terms of economic development and the establishment of a middle class?
Well, I've, as someone who's lived in India for a long time, I've been very encouraged. When I went there, I was just filled with a sadness that I couldn't describe. I mean, I just felt so sad. There was so much pain and poverty, and I just thought, this is never going to change. I felt completely overwhelmed. And those who grew up in India may understand this feeling. But what I've seen is a few things. The government has done a good job at electrifying the villages. Okay, their electricity is spreading around India. The government has, and I'm not talking politically here, I'm just saying in general I've seen this. Secondly, I've seen that there has been a serious effort to build roads in the last 10 years. There are now actual highways in India that you can drive on without a certainty of death as you go between cities. I mean, and that's very important to develop the country. I see the government having a number of terrifically failed programs, like the distribution of food grains, ICDS. There's some programs where almost all the money is stolen, like incredible failures. But there are some government programs that are working, like there are primary health care centers in almost every village of India. I've seen improvements in water, I've seen with infrastructure, it varies from state to state. A place like Bangalore is a complete disaster infrastructurally. Hyderabad is really coming up. Delhi is coming up. And that has a lot to do with the state government. And this is my opinion, but I'm not impressed with Bangalore. 15 years ago, I was impressed with Bangalore. Now, I look at Bangalore and I think, infrastructurally, it's really, it's unbelievable the problems Bangalore has now. Whereas, Calcutta is another one that hasn't come up. Cities like Chandigarh, Hyderabad, Chennai has come up a lot, Delhi, Mumbai has always been quite an efficient city. So, I see a lot of reason to believe that India as a nation is at a tipping point. And it's a very exciting time for the country. And I also see tremendous corruption still. It's like tremendous problems, but it's an exciting time because I don't think it's all in vain. The country is a great country capable of even greater things in the future. And it's a democracy, which is also very positive. They really are trying to fix what's wrong.
I don't want to, does anybody have a question? I have a follow-up, but I don't want to. One other thing, okay. One other question I have, because most of us are geeks.
Yeah.
So in terms of infrastructure, not only the base things that you think about, like roads and electricity, but and one thing I noticed is like the proliferation of wireless telephony.
Yeah, I didn't mention that. That's another incredible. We're better than the U.S. on that.
Yeah, tell me about it. I still have my terrible Nokia. But I'm also wondering about the internet, the possibilities for data networks. How are they getting into the cities? Is it being helpful that there is access to a wealth of information? Both Doug and I work on book search. It's of interest to us, but the internet at large. And how is that helping?
I think that in terms of India moving up as an economic power, this globalization fueled by the internet and telecommunications becoming more accessible, that is what's fueling the boom. Indian poor people have phones now. You saw that. Even auto rickshaw drivers have phones. India skipped landlines completely. Most houses still don't have phones in their house connected to the network, but everyone has a cell phone now. The internet, I've seen that Indian companies live by the internet. Wireless internet is available in almost every part of India now at slow speeds, but it's, if you have a Tata card or Alliance card, you can use it.
And also, like, for people who can't afford computers, there are like cyber cafes in every nook and corner. And like so they're very cheap, and so almost everyone, even if you cannot afford a computer, you can still have access to internet.
Yeah. As you were saying, one of the things that amazes me is even people from our social networks who are very poor, their kids are on Facebook or, on these kind of social networks that you see on the internet, which is really amazing to me. That here's a family I knew who was living in a hut, and now their kid is one of my kids' friends on a social network. So this is very exciting for India, but the challenge is, how do you connect a poor family to that new world? Because right now, many poor families can't make the jump. And that's what we hope we can be a part of. I'm really grateful you could come here today. I'm glad to give you my card and try and make a connection if you have something that you'd like to talk about or if you're visiting. And we're thankful to Google for the opportunity to share this. And if you want to pursue some of the ideas that you have, we really encourage this. And I thank you for your time. Thanks a lot.